All right, we are live. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the InnerStrength Empowerment Hour. I am Lori DePietro stand-in, and these are my amazing success coaches in my program, The Plant Power Revolution. Lori Taylor, who goes by LT, so that since we're both Loris, and Joanne Nagel. So thank you for joining us. We're a couple minutes late today because Facebook decided to glitch on us, but we prevailed. We prevailed. So take that. Also, as you see, as I have already discussed with my coaches, I have manifested share here today. And you can manifest share here too. That's all I'm saying. If I can do it, so can you.
Look at you, 51 years old, 51 years young.
That's right. And look at y'all. So
1 month away from 51 for me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Now, so today we're going to talk about perimenopause and menopause, but that, so much of that is wrapped up in the whole aging thing. So do you feel any differently now about aging than you did before you started this process?
I love aging. It doesn't bother me in the least. I really feel like that I am so young at heart, and I feel like that I now match what my heart does with my physicality. And so I'm just looking forward to the next one because, I used to dread birthdays, and it wasn't because of the number. It was because I wasn't where I wanted to be at that station in life. And now that's going to match up perfectly. Yeah. And I'm just excited about it.
That's good. Yeah. What about you, Joanne? Do you have has that changed for you at all, or is it the same?
Well, I think I used to fear aging because I just didn't want to feel old. And now that I don't feel old, I don't fear any of it anymore. I felt like, oh, I'm just going to be sitting around, not having any energy, achy. And now that I don't feel that way, I'm like, why did I ever think that? Because you don't have to be that way.
No. Right. I think we talked about that a little bit in not the last episode, but I think it was the one before where we talked about aging gracefully and how you fear getting older because of those two things, because you aren't doing the things that you feel like you want to do. So you feel like life is passing you by. And then also because you don't feel well. And so you're kind of staring down the barrel of years and years of feeling worse and worse. And so we hear a lot of women our age, not in our group, but, people who are women who are thinking about coming in potentially, saying things like, I'm getting old. I'm too old for this or that. It's all downhill from here. So it definitely doesn't have to be that way. This can be your amazing second act and the best part of your life. And it starts with getting healthy.
Yeah.
But today we are going to talk about perimenopause and menopause because that is a huge issue for women. And I wanted to explain a little bit about how diet affects that, because if you go to your OBGYN or your primary doc, they are 90% not going to talk to you about diet. They're not going to discuss it with you at all. They're going to talk to you about medications and procedures. And I want you guys to know that here in the United States, menopause is different. So if you look at other places around the world, they don't have the severe symptoms that we have here. And it is because of our diet, which I'm going to explain here in a second why that is. But in other places in the world, menopause is celebrated. They're like, you've been having your period for 40 years or whatever, 35, and it's exciting to not have to do it anymore. And so, but here I hear women even before, when they just think they might have an inkling of the process, they'll be like, well, my OBGYN is going to do blood work to see if I am in perimenopause, and then we'll decide what to do from there. And I'll say, well, what do you mean decide what to do? Like, are you having some problems? Oh no, but they'll put me on, some sort of hormone to make it, easier or whatever. And I'm like, you're not even having any issues yet. And you want to put some kind of synthetic weird stuff in your body. This is what we do here. The other thing that we do is we have the highest rates of hysterectomies in the world. It is the second highest surgery performed on women in the United States. 1 out of 3 women will have a hysterectomy by the time they're 60. I think that is an effing crime. because you have a problem and they don't know what to do. And they're like, you know what? Let's just take that body part out.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible what happens here in the United States. And the thing is women they don't know what to do. So they just say, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's their doctor, right? So they're like, well, you know, if you say it needs to be taken out, and I am obviously having all of these issues, and that's going to solve the problem, then hey, let's take it out. You know, might as well take it out. But here's the thing, it doesn't solve your problems,
Mm-hmm.
because your problems weren't coming from your uterus. Your problems are coming from your diet. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't disorders out there that don't have anything to do with diet, but about 85 to 90% of them are diet related. I was on a site recently that was talking, it was just a women's site, and they were talking about fibroids. And so fibroids are one of the main reasons that people get a hysterectomy. And the thing is that fibroids are directly related to diet. So it is so important, ladies, that you start taking control of your own health, that you become your own advocate, that you do your own research. And, you know, sometimes medical procedures and medications are needed, certainly, but not all the time.
Mhm.
And you have to realize too, when you get a surgery, there is, you know, there is a chance that that's not going to fix the problem. And that it's obviously too, when you take out an entire body part, it's going to cause its own issues as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason that this is related to diet, okay, so there's two things. First of all, when it comes to reproductive health, one of the main problems that we have is dairy. And this makes sense, right? Because dairy is designed, it's cow's milk, breast milk, that is designed to bring a calf to from about 70 pounds to about 700 to 1,000 pounds in the course of a year. Okay, so it's just loaded with hormones. And I'm talking about even if you do organic dairy with no added hormones, it's just like a woman's breast milk, it has hormones in it. That's just natural. So what it's designed to do also, just like human breast milk, is stimulate that baby calf, stimulate its immune system. So just like we are stimulating the immune system of our babies when we breast milk, right? When we breastfeed. So as we all know, none of us breastfeeds past the age of infancy, because that doesn't make any sense, right? So you don't see any kids that are 10, 15, 20, 30 years old, 50 years old, still drinking human breast milk, right? Because that'd be ridiculous, right? I'm one of the healthiest people on the planet. If I offered you all some breast milk, you'd be like, good. No thanks. But we will consume the breast milk of another species that isn't even meant for us and act like there's no consequences.
Mm-hmm.
What they have shown clinically, and I'm talking about Harvard studies, is that breast milk, or that dairy is the catalyst, one of the main catalysts in breast cancer and in reproductive disorders. And it just makes sense because it is constantly stimulating your immune system past the point where your immune system should be stimulated. So think of it this way. If I poke you in the arm, okay? Right now, it doesn't hurt. It's not going to bother you. Imagine if I just keep poking all day long, every day. Eventually, you're going to have a bruise, and then eventually, you're going to have a gaping wound. Okay, so that's what's happening. You're stimulating your immune system to the point where there is a wound there. There's a problem there. And that can take the form of autoimmune disease. It can take the form of cancers. Dairy is also indicated in prostate cancer as well. In addition to that, it can cause reproductive disorders. So you have things like fibroids, endometriosis, PCOS, which is basically a fibroid disorder, infertility. So that combined with gluten. So gluten is another one that they have found. So when I have had success helping women recover from these types of things, it has been with a combination of a dairy and gluten-free diet. So on my program, I've seen, you know, specifically with what I'm doing with them, that's what I've seen. And so that's one issue. And you never hear that when you're going to the doctor. And in fact, I had a woman that I was helping probably, I'm going to say better part of 10 years. So I'm going to say 8 years ago. And she had endometriosis and she had been trying to get pregnant for years and years and just was not having any luck at all. And she had really bad endometriosis. I mean, she was a high school principal and she would have to actually take a few days off of work every month because her periods were so awful. And she told me when we first started, getting together, that she was planning on having a hysterectomy and that they had already scheduled it. And this was in June, and she scheduled it for Christmas vacation because she knew she would have to take a couple of weeks off. And so I said to her, why don't we just try putting you on my plan? Let's just try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You haven't lost anything except probably some weight, right? But it's not going to hurt you to try this. You might not have to have a major surgery. So we did that for 6 months. And when they went in, they didn't do any kind of test beforehand, which I thought was strange, but they went in to do the surgery. And when she woke up because she had been put under anesthesia and everything, when she woke up, the doctor said, what have you been doing? We didn't have to do the surgery. So you look completely different. What is going on? And she said, well, I have adopted a vegan gluten-free diet. And the doctor said to her, oh, okay, yeah, I've heard that can help.
Mm. Yeah.
And here's the weird part. So when she told me this, she was just relating the story. My head was exploding. Like my grades were splattered all over the room because I was like, what?
Right.
Why did he never say this to you? And she's like, I don't know. I didn't ask him. I'm like, ah. So this is the kind of stuff that is going on. And, that's just one example of what's happened with my clients. So the other thing is that when you go into menopause or perimenopause, you don't realize, so your estrogen is produced in your ovaries, but it is metabolized. So it's made useful in your gut. So when your gut is unhealthy, that is going to inhibit your estrogen being metabolized. So it's going to affect your hormones. Okay, so many women have come into my program with hot flashes, with horrible night sweats, with brain fog, with all of the things that, I mentioned, uncontrollable bleeding, just all of these symptoms. And when they adopt my plan, that's one of the first things that they notice is that, thank God, my hot flashes are gone. I'm sleeping better. My night sweats are gone. I'm thinking more clearly again. I don't feel like I'm elderly right now. That is because your gut is healing and your estrogen is being metabolized more effectively. So that's a big explanation here at the beginning, but I wanted to set the framework for this because it's so important that you understand what is happening, because, nothing against doctors, but they are not trained in nutrition. Mm-hmm. They have the average doctor has somewhere between 48 and 72 hours of nutrition training, and that is in their entire 8 to 10 year, schooling and internship. They just don't know. And even when they give you some kind of recommendation, it's typically not something that they've studied. Well, I hear some people are having some results with keto, and then people will say, well, my doctor told me to do keto, but then I developed gout, and then my cholesterol went up really high. And then, they'll give me this big, long list of problems. And the thing is also, keto is just not sustainable. So you have to be your own advocate. And you have to align yourself with people who know what they're talking about. Just like I'm not going to go If you guys need a surgical procedure, I'm not your girl. I'm not going to be the one to explain to you or any doctor how to do that. I would be going to a doctor being like, okay, I needed this surgical procedure. But with nutrition, for most doctors, they don't know.
Mhm.
All right. So with that being said, I would love for you guys to comment on any. I'm sure that some of this is really new information for you. I always look over here. I hope you guys realize my phone is over here, and that's the way I see your comments. So please comment. Feel free to comment with how you feel about all of this, any experiences you have had, and any questions that you have. So LT, I know that you are out of town today.
I am in Auburn, the loveliest village on the plains, home of the Tigers, War Eagle. I'm here to visit my son for the weekend. He's a student here. And, it's about a 4-hour drive to get here. And I want to attribute staying on plan to you and what you have taught us in the program, because, I've had lots of little things that could have derailed me on the way here. We stopped and got something to eat because it's a 4-hour drive, like I said. So stopped at a Mexican restaurant. I'm able to get the veggie fajitas without all the stuff and, cooked in low oil, and then have the water and don't eat the chips and the cheese. And see, and that's not something I would have ordered before in my old life, but did fine with that. I had I had my little cooler with my little snacks in my little bag, because I'm here in a hotel where they have a big continental breakfast with all of the cereals and the pastries and the muffins, and all of that was laid out. So I just got my little fruit, and I had my little juice that I brought, and I had my little dairy-free yogurt. They have a fitness center here. I've already done my 1-hour workout this morning. So what I'm trying to say is that you can still do things and be on plan and follow the guidelines in the program that we've set up that will set you up for success, even though you're going to have little speed bumps along the way. It's just a matter of choice, and I want the consequences that have served me well. And this is what works for me. It's successful for me. And I want to thank you for that, because, you taught us with this. And we have a whole group of support and motivation behind us to keep us going, but it's all about choices. The whole thing is about choices.
It is. And if you know what those choices are, because I think a lot of times you're like a deer in the headlights when you start something like this, especially if you're trying to do it on your own. It's overwhelming because you don't know what to do. But when you, John and I, our favorite thing to do is go eat Mexican. I like to eat a literal vat of guacamole with my veggies.
Yeah.
Like, could you bring me extra guacamole? They'll bring you like this. I'm like, I need guacamole. So yeah. And when I like to have a margarita myself. But yeah, so it's easy. It is.
It really is. Yeah. And you feel better when you do it that way, and you don't have all that pressure and that guilt and that beating yourself up, and you feel like I'm doing something good for myself, and it feels good, and my stomach feels good, and my energy's good, and I'm sleeping better, and I feel proud of myself because I really am sticking to a commitment, and I'm honoring that commitment that I made to myself. Because for 30 years I yo-yoed, and I just was the first one to throw in the towel. And so I just really feel like I'm really sticking with something, and I'm getting nothing but benefits right and left from it.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
Right. And it is about being able, there's nothing better than being able to trust yourself.
Oh gosh, it's the best.
That's an amazing feeling. And,
yes.
And we are going on vacation finally.
Yeah.
In about a week or so, and I've already gotten on line. I've looked at what the restaurants and things are around there. I know what we're gonna do when we're down there. There's even a Trader Joe's on our way from the airport to where we're staying, and I'm just like, it's cake,
It is.
But yeah, that's the thing, is we're all still living our lives. Life doesn't stop, it just gets better. So.
It really does. And there's in our old life, see, we would have, or I'll speak for myself, you know, I would have skipped the exercise. I would have been the first one having the croissant and their cereal or the pastry or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then you'll say, oh, well, yeah, I just blew that, you know, so, and it's Easter weekend and I'm just going to go ahead and eat all the Reese's eggs, you know, right, just forget that.
Yeah,
And
right.
then just start the next week. So none of that's going on and I'm the better for it.
Right, exactly. So now when I know that for both of you, you had symptoms of perimenopause, menopause early on. And I wanted to ask about your experiences with that. And so when did you actually start having the hormonal issues and what were they?
Yeah, I started in my late 30s with hot flashes in general. And it was the type where I just felt like I was on fire in 2 seconds. And I got to where I couldn't even put my makeup on unless I had a fan blowing in my face. And I would get so hot that the back of my neck would break out and be wet. And so that just, and that was late 30s. And as I got in my 40s, because I'm almost 51, as I got in my 40s, then the night sweat started. And that was the type that where I would actually drench the bed, my entire back. I would have streams of sweat running down my leg. I'm talking about streams. And I would sleep on a towel and then you would get that cold feeling, even though you're so hot, because then all you were wet. And then you would have to get up and change and all that. And I wouldn't say that I did this just once in a while. I would say that I did this several nights a week. And I had already started in with my doctor, which, by the way, it goes as we're saying, none of them mentioned diet to me, not one single time. So I went to a doctor who was really a plastic surgeon. And on the side, he had where you would come into his office, he did bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. So I would have these little pellets about the size of a grain of rice inserted in my lower back, upper hip, and just be so sore the next day from that. Oh my gosh, because it's a tiny incision and then you just could feel that. And so he would take blood work before and then he would take blood work after. And he was trying to get me to normal levels with that. And it was very expensive. And it's something that I had to do about every 3 months.
Did you feel better?
You know, I did in the very beginning after I got over that soreness, just a little bit, but it was so fleeting. And then, like I said, it would go down again and then I'd have to do it again and down again. But I never was just really like, this is it. Oh my gosh. The world was black and white and now it's in color. No, I was never that way at all. And with my OBGYN, she was giving me some sort of a spray. I think it was called Eva Mist, and it had this little cone around, and I would do it on the inner part of my arm, and then it would absorb. And so I was just wanting relief from these hot flashes and these night sweats, and I really wasn't getting it either way. I would say it was putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound, and then I would have to go back again and get more.
That was going on for the better part of 10 years before I even met you.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because I remember you and I talking about it when you first came onto the program.
Yeah, I suffered with this for a very long time. And I even self-diagnosed myself as having PCOS because I did the Google doctor thing and looked it all up. So I went and asked to be tested for that. And that was horrific. And then they couldn't find anything related to that. But I was just sure that was what it was. And, you know, my mother is 81. And when I was in college 30 years ago, she was about the age I am now, early 50s. And she had a complete and total hysterectomy. She was completely debilitated with her periods. She was passing blood clots the size of hard-boiled eggs. She would not even leave the house. She would absolutely just flood. And when I say flood, I mean flood. Sit on plastic. If she had to do something in the car, and this is in addition with all her paraphernalia that she's got going on, you know, wearing and all this stuff, you know, just flooding through things. And so she's had to deal with that her whole life, just the after effects of that. And she grew up on a dairy farm. That's what they did. Her dad was a dairy farmer. And she had endometriosis terribly when they first got married, her and my dad, and they did not have me until year 10. And they started trying to have me about year 1 or 2. So I finally came along, and I am an only child, and she did want more, but she just never could get pregnant. And they just feel like they were lucky to even be able to have me. So she's had problems in that area practically her whole life.
Right. And I'm sure that your doctors asked you about family history, and that
Sure.
makes you think that, oh, well, if my mom had it, this is just, I'm
Mhm.
going down the same road.
Oh yeah, I thought I was doomed for all of this. I mean, that was my mindset for the whole thing. That look at this path I've got. And so, what can I take to get rid of it? Yeah, and what can you
Right.
give me? And that's what it was. And I have found that with you, when I started this, I'm talking about it was within a few short weeks. I felt better immediately, but I mean, my night sweats were gone by about week 2 or 3. And it has just gotten better and better ever since. The hot flashes are gone. The mood swings are gone. I feel leveled, balanced. And all of that is with none of that stuff. It was with nutrition.
Right. So what about you, Joanne? What I know that you're not in menopause. And you're
Right.
how old? You're 40.
I'm going to be 48 this summer.
That's what I thought. And look at you, I swear, every time I see you on camera, I think you just look like you're about 30 because your skin is
He does. Look at him.
Thanks. We should meet like this more often.
That's right. So yeah, everybody should surround themselves with people who compliment them. That's for
right.
sure.
Yeah.
So but you started having some symptoms, and so tell us about that.
Well, prior to this, I now looking back and knowing what I know now, I attribute all my hormone disruption stuff that I had. I went through like a lot of fertility treatments. And even prior to seeing the fertility doctor, I was having ovarian cysts regularly. I ended up at the emergency room thinking I was dying one day because a cyst had ruptured. And so, probably every 4 or 5 months, I'd have one of those. I was also having, I got diagnosed with fibrocystic breast disorder because I was having so many cysts in my breast tissue. I would probably have 10 or 15 on each side every other month, and so painful. And the only thing they told me about that was, well, you could quit caffeine because that's been proven to maybe reduce those. But the doctor was even like, but it's not even worth it. I would never give up caffeine to make that go away. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever. So fast forward, all the fertility treatments later, and I have twins, but all the hormones that I had to take to even go through those cycles, I was getting shots of progesterone, I was getting shots of estrogen, I was getting shots of HCG. Just flooded with high doses of hormones. So then fast forward to years of a bad diet, right before I had contacted you, I was having panic attacks just out of nowhere. I just started having these, like I would just start crying in the middle of the day out of nowhere. And that's not me. Like that, if anybody knows me, knows that I'm just like, just get over it, stop crying. And I was a mess. I was like, what is going on with me? I thought I was going crazy. And that lasted for probably, I don't know, I'd say almost 6 months. Maybe I was 4 or 5, 6 months. I was dealing with that, which I didn't know was hormone related. But then I had a hot flash. And when I had a hot flash, I remember telling you, I thought I was having a heart attack because I never had felt anything that like literally took over my body like that. And I was doing the thing, I was just dripping. You could just see sweat dripping down my body. And it came from like my core, and it just like it felt like a volcano.
Yeah, it does. It wells up. Yeah,
it wells up.
And I was like, "What's happening? What's happening?" I was really in a panic. So I had 2 of those in one day, and I should have probably gone to the hospital because I didn't know what it was. But I think I called you like the next day, and I was like, I got to do something. I found you online because I was looking up menopause. I was looking up natural remedies or natural ways to treat menopause because I knew with my history of having all those hormones pumped in me, I did not want to do hormone replacement. I didn't want any more artificial hormones put in me. So I think that's how I found you initially because, I just could not even deal with what the mess that was going on.
Right. And you were having severe brain fog as well, right?
Yes, like brain fog to the point where I did ask my doctor if I had Alzheimer's because I was literally forgetting everything all day long. I mean, it was like debilitating brain fog and the debilitating, just hormone fluctuations, which I didn't attribute to hormones, but like the mood was like, I mean, I couldn't control it. And I was recognizing that I was out of control, and that was scaring me really bad.
I had mood swings too. They were very high and very low. And like her, like Joanne, I could start crying in 2 seconds. And then 2 seconds later, I would be mad as a hornet. So I just was like, what is wrong? I mean, it's really scary.
It's scary.
Yeah, as you guys know, my grandma died from early onset Alzheimer's. And so that's my story as well. I started getting really hot flashes and really severe night sweats like ULT in my mid 30s. And they, I went to the OBGYN and they were no help. They're like, oh, looks like you're going into early menopause. And, that they really didn't have any answers for me. They gave me something, they told me to take this like natural thing called estrogen, which didn't help whatsoever. And then, but I was also, in addition to those symptoms, I was having, my hair started to go gray, and I was having this horrible brain fog, and I was terrified because I had always been a quick thinker, and I just thought, this is it. This is early Alzheimer's. This is, I'm going down the same path as my grandma. And that's just, it's terrifying to even have that thought. If you've ever seen anyone who has suffered with Alzheimer's, especially, because it's just an evil disease. And so, and a lot of the women that I talk to are experiencing that same level of brain fog, where it's really scary to them to feel that way.
Both of my grandmothers died with Alzheimer's as well. So I do know what that looks like. And my dad had some symptoms of that before he died. He had other things going wrong, but he definitely had some sort of dementia going on as well. But, in addition to what we're all saying about that, you also have this just low energy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're like a sloth. You don't even want to do anything.
I had about 3 good hours a day. And, I was in my 30s. So, I mean, I just thought, is this going to get worse? Like, how much worse could it get?
That's right. What are you going to be at 65? You're thinking that when you're 32, you're like, what is 65 going to look like? Right.
And that's why I think so many women, they get into their 40s and they just think it's all downhill from here, because they just think I already don't feel good. And I go to the doctor and I'm already on, and then the medications they put you on have side effects. Sure. So then you're dealing with your issues and with the side effects of the medication. And it's disheartening. You just think you don't have any control over your life anymore. Gina says, I agree with LT. Eating a plant-based diet has changed the way I feel and has boosted my self-confidence, especially because I feel so much better. I had gotten really bad hot flashes in my early 30s, and now I don't get any hot flashes. It's about mindset too. I love this group. You're also inspiring. So thank you for that, Gina.
Thank you.
So did you gain weight at this time as well when you were going through?
Did I gain weight? Listen, lady. That's all I did was gain weight, because I was on these 26 programs, and then I would lose and then gain and lose and gain, and every time I gained it was a little bit more. So you had that going on too. So that was in addition. And then there's your self-esteem, and there's your sense of pride, and then you're isolating, and then you're not setting good boundaries, and then you're wanting to please everybody because you can't control yourself. It was a vicious cycle. And if I could take back those years, I would take them back. But, I've learned and I'm moving forward, and here we go. But I will say, yes, weight gain was a major factor during all of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And for me, I mean, we already have like an apple-shaped family, like that's, our body shape. But I gained even more belly fat, and people did periodically, like regularly, ask me if I was pregnant, which is embarrassing, because I wasn't.
They say, what do you do? And you're not.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm not pregnant. And then they're humiliated. I'm humiliated.
They hate it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, What about you, Joanne?
Yeah. I had a lady at the vet ask me, when's baby due? I was like, get a little closer. I'm about to punch your face.
Right.
It's horrifying when, and
I know.
especially if you're out of control, you don't know what's going to happen if somebody asks you that.
Right.
But yeah, I did. I
Like,
gained
don't
a lot.
test me.
Yeah, don't test me, not today. But yeah, I did. I was just going up and up and up, and I just couldn't stop it. And I mean, it's probably a combination of, at that point, I had just lost all hope anyway, and just was, eating candy and pop and everything. Just
Eating addictive things.
Yeah. Because I didn't have any energy because, it is a vicious cycle, like you said.
Yeah, I think that you also, what happens when your hormones change, so it is actually a cycle, because when your hormones actually can affect your gut flora. So it is all, and your gut flora is affected by what you eat. So you end up being in this really, this cycle where you're really craving things that are acidic. So things like either sugar or really salty stuff, or coffee, things that are super acidic, and of course energy. I was always trying to find something to give me more energy. I was drinking a ridiculous amount of coffee, and it wasn't helping.
I was Diet Coke all the time.
Yeah,
I was the Coke and the candy bar every day.
You were the real Coke in the red can.
The real Coke. Well, at McDonald's. The real Coke at McDonald's.
At McDonald's. Okay.
Sometimes I would be good and get the Diet Coke because that was helping, which made me even more mad because I'm so against artificial sweeteners. But that Diet Coke, there's something about it that's so addictive that, even though I didn't want to put artificial sweeteners in. Yeah. So I was back and forth between the Coke and the Diet Coke, but it was like those 3 good hours of the day that you had. I was getting to the point where those weren't even very good and I was falling asleep. And so right before I would pick the kids up from school, do my little routine, get my candy bar, get my Coke, eat it in the car so I wouldn't fall asleep in the pickup line so that I could come home and make dinner and help with homework. Because that's the only part of the day I had.
I was the same. I really tried. I wanted the best part of my day to be with my kids because I didn't want them to know how bad it was.
Yeah.
And, and Emily says, see, that's why I'm here. Not the baby belly, but the preemptive menopause strike. So, right. I mean, that's the thing too, so for me, what they told me was, you're going into early menopause, but when I changed my diet, all of those symptoms reversed. So as I went on with that process, I thought, well, how many other women are actually going into early menopause because of this? And they're not realizing that there is a way out of that process. Because when I changed my diet, I mean, my period became regular to the day, which it had never even been in my life. And so I know you said that too, Joanne, because yours is regular to the
28 days. Yeah, I mean 28 days, right there now.
Yeah, and it's that's the thing is it's in so what people will do, I just want to say this as a side note, is that because I hear this too, they're like, well, I went to a functional doctor. So nothing against functional doctors, but if you want to be put on about 27 herbs and supplements, then go to a functional doctor, because that's the trend right now. And that stuff is again, like LT said, a Band-Aid on a gaping wound.
Yeah.
If you're not changing your nutrition, then that stuff's not going to do it.
Right.
So Cindy says, it's such a shame I found you so late in life, but a blessing that I found you at all. I have experienced the infertility chaos, the dripping sweats to the point that I had boob sweat and it would drip down my back and into my pants. Exhausted, drinking coffee all day to stay awake. Let's not talk about the brain fog. Within 2 weeks, so Cindy is on my program. Within 2 weeks, I was feeling better, and each day it gets better and better. So nice to know that I wasn't crazy after all the mood swings.
Yes.
It does make you feel crazy. And at the time I was married to somebody who was also super condescending. So that doesn't help either.
Not a good
when you have
somebody
just also being like, you're crazy. You're already feeling crazy. And again, it's like, don't test me, dude. So what do you think was in your guys' experience, what was the hardest thing about it? When you were going through this, what was the hardest thing about it?
Feeling out of control, just
Mhm.
feeling just up and down. And I wanted balance so desperately. I craved balance, but I just was so moody. And I regret that I was as short as I was to as many people as I was, and snappy. And because it really was misplaced anger is what
Mhm.
it was. And I was angry at the situation. I was angry a lot at myself. I just beat myself up so much because I could not pull it together. And that's why I was thinking, why do you have so much going for you in life? And I could tick them off. I had wonderful things going for me, but this overrode all of them because I could not pull it together. So it tainted all of the good, and I allowed it to happen. And that's
It's
what
the
makes
lens.
me so sad about things, why I let it get that far. Because life is really complicated in a lot of areas, but it's great in a lot of areas. If you really look around, we have got a lot to be thankful and grateful for. And I see it so clearly now. And I am so appreciative of so many things that I just let wash over me before. So that would be the main thing. I also like having renewed relationships, because when you're balanced and when you're clear and when you're in control, you can really be present with someone instead of being worried about all of your junk or being consumed by something. And so I would say that that's happened not only with friendships that I have, but it's also happened in my marriage. And we've been married just in another week or two, we're going to be married 29 years. And, that's wonderful too, that you have that renewed, that little, whatever you want to call it, but it's definitely, it's definitely back.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that, when you don't feel well, and I've talked about this
Yep.
quite a bit, it is the foundation
Mm-hmm.
of how you see things. It's the lens.
It
And
is.
so if you are not feeling well and you're feeling out of control, bloated, hormonal, crazy cravings, all the things that
Mm-hmm.
happen, with this, then it's really hard to look at things in a normal, you're not looking through a normal lens.
You're not.
Um,
Mm-mm.
and
Mhm.
it makes you, like you said, not be able to trust yourself. You feel out of control, which means, I think, which we also have talked about, like, you need everybody else to perform perfectly, because
Mhm.
if anything goes wrong, you're losing it,
Yeah.
And
and
that's a lot of pressure on someone.
it really, it is, it puts a lot of pressure on the people around us.
It
And as
does.
women, we all know we put too much pressure on ourselves, but it damages everyone around us when we feel like everything has to go perfectly or I'm going to lose my shit.
Mhm. Right.
Basically.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
even when things do go perfectly, you might still lose it anyway. Um, but so what about you, Joanne? What do you think was the hardest part of all of it?
I think the mental game was the hardest part of it for me. The losing control of, like LT said, just being able to snap off at somebody so quickly. And then knowing myself before all of this kicked in, and knowing that I used to be spontaneous and fun and joking all the time. And then I was looking at myself in probably the year before I started, where it started getting really dark and deep. I was like, this isn't even me. It's not myself. Like how much worse is this going to get? Because it was already so dark and ugly and just, not who I was. So not being able to get that back and control that, it was just terrifying to me. And I didn't like it. I didn't like who I was. So I think, and I didn't like not being able to control the panic that was happening, the anxiety, and that was getting so much worse, to where, several times a day, my heart would race. I would just get panicky. I was having all sorts of, palpitations and just lightheaded, because I think I was hyperventilating just out of nowhere. I mean, there was nothing to provoke it even. I could be at home alone and it would happen.
Yeah.
And that was just really terrifying to me.
Yeah. I also had the panic attacks, my heart was, would start fluttering, and they wanted me to wear a 24-hour heart monitor.
I did that. I had to wear the 24-hour, and they're like, "You're fine, nothing's wrong." But I'm like,
I know,
dude, I'm
but
not fine. Like something's
right.
wrong.
I mean, I don't know what was I going to do just to prove that I'm already
I
having a
know.
problem? But yeah, I just told him no. I mean, in my case, I was just like, y'all aren't helping. So yes, I'm having some kind of problem here, and you putting me on a 24-hour heart monitor is not gonna.
I had to wear one as well because I had some vertigo problems, and the first time I ever had vertigo, my son was in elementary school, and I literally picked his backpack up and put it on the counter. And I mean, I was Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz, and the room was spinning, and I just went hot, cold, flush, clammy. I knew I was on a brick floor, and I was like, I better get low because I'm about to bust my head open. So I just crawled, and then I got real sick and, throwing up and nauseated and all that. And that's why they wanted to put me on the heart monitor to look at that. And I've had about 3 or 4 of those Dorothy moments like that, but I'm always having to watch myself, but I haven't had any since I've started this plant-based for sure.
Yeah.
Because I'm being aware of it. I'm taking note that has not happened. Because listen, when you live thinking that you're about to be in Wizard of Oz land, it's not a fun feeling.
No.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, there's some things that even I think we almost get used to, we settle, we almost get used to it. And then we realize, wait, and we hear that in our group all the time. I didn't realize this, but, like we had joint inflammation is a huge one. And we had someone say that she was wearing a wrist brace all the time, and that her son actually noticed that she hadn't been wearing it, and she was like, oh my gosh, he's right. Like I haven't had to wear it, So there's some things that we just settle for, and it just becomes part of our lives, and we don't realize until we feel so much better how bad things had gotten. So, I know that you already kind of answered this, LT, but for both of you, once you started this, and I have a 3-phase program. So the first phase is a 5-day cleanse. It's not a fast. It's just a cleanse with juices and food. Then we have 3 weeks of really clean eating. And then we move into a phase where I teach you how you can still indulge and live your life on this plan. But how quickly did each of you start to experience real changes where you thought, I feel dramatically different, maybe different than, because there's so many programs out there, right? So I guess it's a twofold question. So how quickly did you feel differently, and how did you know that it was different from other things you had experienced?
I felt better within the first week, just under 7 days. And here's why. I knew that my bloat was gone. I knew I was thinking clearer, and I knew that I was not being pulled towards those foods that I was eating too many of. And when I say that, it's the junk food and the Diet Coke, because I gave that up cold turkey and started this. And I was drinking about 6 Diet Cokes a day at the time. And so what happened was that immediately started. And then like just another week or 2 later, then the night sweats stopped. Then just a couple of months later, this rash that I had for 10 years under my arm completely went away. And so just different areas along the way were getting better and better, and it still is. But immediately feeling better, it was less than 7 days.
Right. And I know for you, your main focus for decades of your life was just getting the weight off. And I remember you saying to me early on, like, the weight's coming off, but I'm not even worried about that. I feel so much better. Like, that's what I want to do.
It felt doable. It felt like I didn't realize that I was going to feel this much better in so many different areas. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 areas. I mean, it was the way I was sleeping. It was my endurance, my energy. It was my skin. It was my disposition. I finally got that balance that I had just longed for. I mean, just yearned for. So that and the mood. And I thought, oh my gosh. And then I was still had the bulk of my weight to lose because I had lost so much. I'm over 75 pounds now at this point from the beginning. But my gosh, I thought, if I could just feel like this, then I can handle this weight. But guess what? That weight just kept ticking off too. And I was like, I'm getting the best of both worlds. And I loved it. And it's just been better ever since.
Right.
Yeah.
What about you, Joanne?
Yeah, mine was immediate as well. I remember saying, you know, I joined your group in July and my panic attack stopped in July because within, I mean, I was trying to think back of when the last one I had, and I've been in this a year and a half now, but that first month that I joined it, within 2 weeks, I mean, probably within the first week, I wasn't having those panic attacks, but I can definitely say within the first 2 weeks, my mood had just done a 180. I mean, just the control I had over my mood. I wasn't crying. I wasn't panicking. You know, I still have anxiety, obviously, but it doesn't run the bus anymore. I'm in control of it now. And, you know, other things too. I have not had, and for years I have gone to the doctor about those cysts in my breasts. And I've actually had surgery to remove one. I've had core biopsies because on a mammogram, they show up funky. If you can't tell, they're like, we got to check it out. I mean, I've had invasive procedures. I have not had one since I've started this program, and I haven't given up caffeine. And that was the one thing they told me to try, was to give up caffeine. I drink tea every day, just like I always did. And I have not had one breast cyst since I started. So
you're actually, I never experienced that, thankfully, but you are. And so it wasn't even on my radar. And you are the third client to tell me that. And it really is amazing that things like this can be happening, and you go to the doctor and they just literally have no answers except to cut you open.
Yeah. And I mean, they put me under anesthesia and thousands of dollars worth of medical bills. And all I had to do is change how I eat. Like, I could have saved so much money if I would have met you when I was like 25, because I think of all the fertility doctor treatments. I mean, that was like,
listen, all three of us could have been on a trip around the world with what I've spent on stuff. We could have seen every continent.
Yeah.
All three of them. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Linda says, my night sweats stopped between 3 and 4 weeks. Insomnia stopped as well. I sleep like a log now. Immediately, I notice skin changes. My skin is so soft. I gave up coffee. I wake up energized and ready to go. Thank you, Joanne, for mentioning caffeine. I was going to ask if you gave up caffeine, because I have 1 cup of black coffee a day.
No, I have my 2 cups of tea in the morning, and then I switch over and I have herbal tea the rest of the day. So
yep. I have this tiny, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you've seen it in a video or two. I have this tiny little coffee mug that's like this big, and I fill it about half full with coffee. I just have honestly, I don't need it. It's because I love coffee, like black coffee. I don't even put anything in it. I just like it. So I do like 2 ounces a day. But yeah, there are people in our group who drink 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day, and they're fine. If it's more than that, it's not helping you. We all know we get addicted to it, and at some point it's just not helping us. It just is addicted to it. So if people are drinking more than that, then, you know, my goal with them is to help them not to abuse caffeine, because it's not helping, and it can affect your hormones. It can affect your gut flora if you're overdoing it. So yeah, Emily says, wait, give up coffee. And then Linda says Dandy Blend, which is so many women in our group. So what I started this years ago. I found out about Dandy Blend, which is a tea that tastes like coffee, and it's actually good for you. And it's a dandelion root and chicory is the basis of it. And it is delicious. It's real smooth. It almost tastes like it has a little bit of like coffee with cream taste to it.
Yeah.
And it's easy. It's a powder. So you have like really hot water and you mix it in, and it is amazing. And it
tastes just like coffee.
I know.
It tastes like coffee, but it doesn't. It's like the coffee without the heartburn.
Without the stuff. I've never been a coffee drinker, but my husband is an absolute coffee fanatic, and I have him switch to the Dandy Blend now. And I'm telling you, if he can drink it, because he was a fanatic, and he also has switched on his own because he loves the whipped cream. This is him with whipped cream, putting it on top of his coffee. He's now doing a dairy-free whipped cream, and he's fine. It's all he wants. It's all he needs.
That's the other really exciting thing to me, is just seeing women come every single time. And I just want you guys to know this, like every single time, well, I'd say 99% of the time, the women will say to me, oh, it's my husband's never going to get on board
No,
with it.
right.
Like they don't even,
Right.
I'm like, you never know, because I see it all the time. And they're like, no, not my husband.
No,
It's
not mine. Right.
And then about once a week in the group, somebody's like, you're not going to believe this, but my husband switched over to this. Like it does happen.
It
Mhm.
does. And my 18-year-old daughter is now making better choices, not 100%, but tons better. And she's to the point now that she's texting me a lot. And she's like, is this better or is this better? Because she just knows that she can trust me and I'm telling her the truth.
Yeah.
And she's seen the results for me. And she knows that I want to make a healthy choice too. So the more she can do that, the better she's going to be. I'm glad. I welcome it. I'm glad it's happening.
Right. That's the thing is you don't even have to, preach to the people around you. They just see your
They see
family
it.
will see
Yeah.
that things are better and they will just start doing it.
Mhm.
And we have a plan to help you with that too, in the group. Rona says, I told my OBGYN that I went plant-based and it relieved my hot flashes. She laughed and said, it doesn't work that way. And that the hormones in meat would probably help my hot flashes. My God. And needless to say,
Don't tell
I
her the
mean-
name because Lori's going to get in her car and go there.
Know it. We all need to send a
Like-
letter to that doctor with our proof that it is. My God.
right. Needless to say, I'm looking for a new doc. I also realized that I trust myself and Lori more than the so-called experts, AKA doctors.
Right.
Yeah.
Brains
We're
splattered.
proof. We're living proof.
I just can't. I
I know.
cannot. I mean,
Yeah.
there just isn't. There's so much clinical evidence for a plant-based diet. That the fact that the doctors, it's almost like they're willfully ignorant. So it is just.
Because their drug reps are coming around and they want to prescribe what those reps are giving and the samples. And yeah, I mean, that's what I think it is. That's
not, and here's the thing. I'm not saying that you never need medication. Clearly,
Right.
we live in an advanced society where sometimes medication is necessary. But for this,
no.
it is rare that medication is the answer. So and it is it's awful that women are still being told this by their doctors.
Right.
So have your feelings. So I am in menopause now. So, what happened with me is they told me I was going into early menopause and I wasn't, because I changed my diet and my period got regular to the day. All of my symptoms went away and I was great for many, many years. And then I had a miscarriage when I was 46, and that changed me hormonally. And I started going into to menopause at that point. So I've been in it now, like, perimenopause and then now actually menopause now for about 5 years. And I now that I'm in it, my symptoms are nothing like they were back then. I don't have night sweats. I very rarely have a hot flash. And if I do, it lasts about 30 seconds. It's just you kind of feel that, heat a little bit and then it just goes away. As I've said many times, my hair got curly. My hair is stick straight my whole life. So that's one thing I like about it. And, my period got heavier for a while. And now it's not. Now I don't have my period every month, but it's not. The thing is, I have not done any kind of medication for this the whole time, like in the past 5 years, and it's been fine. This is what they do in other countries. They live their lives. And it doesn't require an ablation and a hysterectomy and a bunch of medications and all of this stuff. And so this doesn't have to be a part of our lives like that, looks like that. For me, it's been this feeling of empowerment instead of the exact opposite, which is what so many other women are experiencing. So I look at it now as a rite of passage instead of looking at it like, here's this awful thing that's taking me away because I don't feel like myself anymore, which is how so many women feel. Angela says, I had a complete hysterectomy, so menopause bit me hard, but that was 6 years ago. Menopause did make the hair under my arms and my legs not really grow. So that's good, right? So every once in a while you get some good symptoms, right? Like I said, with my hair, like I'll take it. Susie says, I loved the Dandy Blend. I love the Dandy Blend and absolutely love the butterfly pea flower tea. So that's a recipe that I put up recently, the blue lemonade. So just scroll back or search butterfly and you'll find it. Angela said, my stomach grew like crazy after menopause. Yeah. So that now part of that is normal because it's a redistribution. So what happens naturally in menopause is weight that you were having, making your hips wider for childbirth, redistributes. And so that some of that can go into your belly. So that's something that I found out when I was researching. But the thing is, whether it is a pronounced, like I look pregnant thing, or just sort of a different shape in your body, has to do with your diet. So that's absolutely the case. How have you guys, so LT, you were in it or getting through it, and Joanne, you're not there yet. How has your view on this changed about this time in your life, about menopause specifically?
I've just breezed right through it after this 1 year. I suffered for all those years before, and I have literally not had any more of the night sweats or the hot flashes. My mood is so stable now, and I really, this past year has just been wonderful. I feel like that I have crossed over the hump.
Yeah.
I feel like it's all downhill. I mean, uphill from here.
Right, exactly. However you want to look at it, right? Good stuff ahead.
Right.
Awesome. Yeah. What about you, Joanne?
Well, I don't fear it anymore because all the things you grow up hearing, like you either have to get put on some patch or you have to go on hormones or you have to do this. And I remember one time my mother-in-law did not want to take all the hormones. And so her plan was just to eat a lot of sweet potatoes because the doctor had told her eating sweet potatoes or yams or something would help. And now thinking about that, I'm like, well, yeah, eating sweet potatoes every day for breakfast and then, eating all the other plant-based things, that's what helps. It's not just adding in a sweet potato every day that's going to help. But, I used to think it was like something you really had to ramp yourself up for and get prepared and, batten down the hatches because here we go. Right. And now I'm like, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. And if I'm already seeing improvements in my hormones now going into it, I don't fear what it's going to bring. Like, bring it on. I'm not afraid of it because now I'm in control of my health and I'm in control of my moods. So I think that was the other part of it was I thought once I actually hit menopause, you start to hear about stuff like, oh, your bones are going to start to rot. You think after the menopause happens, like the big event, you hear about all these things that are just going to deteriorate. And now I think I used to have just such a fear of that. Like, it's going to suck. I'm going to be old and crippled. But I don't have that fear anymore at all.
No,
yeah,
I don't either.
There's definitely an empowerment, that you feel like you're in control of your health. And when you feel strong, that is, again, when you're good with your physicality, that affects everything. And it can be a negative thing if you're not feeling well and you're not feeling in control and you're scared of what's going to happen to you physically, or it can be a positive thing if you feel like I'm in control of my health. My energy level is good. I feel hormonally stable, and it's just all, the way that it colors your world is amazing. Feel that way. I think also one thing I wanted to mention is when I was going through all that hormonal stuff, I did not feel feminine. I felt very androgynous, and I didn't even realize how much that affected me until I stopped feeling that way. It's that part of it was also feeling like I was losing part of myself, and I couldn't really put my finger on it. And now looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, that's how I felt.
Yeah. I felt like a bag of laundry. I remember telling you that. I'm like, I just feel like a lumpy bag of laundry. I have no purpose. I have no feelings. I have no, I'm just sitting there as a bag of laundry. You're just there. Yeah. And do you guys watch the Grace and Frankie or whatever? The episode, it's just like, I just started watching that, but the episode where they go into the store and Grace is like, am I invisible? You know, because the clerk is only talking to the young, beautiful people. And here they are post-menopausal, and they're like, we're invisible to the world now. Nobody looks at us. Nobody listens to us. Nobody wants our opinion.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have that fear of that happening anymore.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. I feel like I'm like me squared.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm ultra me. Like it's
Yeah.
really, it's hard to describe to people who aren't in this situation.
Yeah, I call it operating on all cylinders. You feel
Yeah.
like that you're just, every little area is ticking off, that your purpose is being fulfilled. You've got the youth, the vitality, you've got the better outlook, you've got the better disposition. Your relationships have improved. There's just so many positive things that just feels like everything is going your way. Even though, as we know in life, not everything goes your way, but you're
Right.
able to handle that so much better.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, I, like you said at the beginning, it really is about, you feel so much gratitude,
Yes.
and that just changes how you
Overwhelming.
look at everything.
It's overwhelming gratitude, really. It brings me to my knees. I'm so grateful in so many areas, and you're at the top of that list, because this is just something that I could not, it was right in front of me, but I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it. And I just tried so hard. I never gave up.
Yeah.
But when you get it, it's just better than you think. And it happens much quicker than you think.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not as hard as you think.
It's not as hard as you think.
It's not hard at
It's
all.
not.
That's the shocking part. It's like easier than anything else we've ever done.
Right. With all of that's, I did a post earlier in the week about all the calculations that people think they have to do to be healthy. And it's about, well, I need this many grams of protein a day, and I need this much calcium, and I need, I can only do this many net carbs, and their whole life becomes about some kind of mathematic equation.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like that.
No.
And it was never meant to be like that. But we think, that if it's not like that, that it's not going to work, because we've been trained to think like it has to, that's the way it has to look. If you want this, if you want to be healthy, then it's about the numbers, but my plan is about ratios, and you don't have to weigh anything. You don't have to calculate anything. And it's just such an easy way to live. And so that's the other thing. And it brings me to a question that somebody asked. She says, is eating soy. She said, I have no ovaries, so eating soy would be good for me. So, that is an old argument years and years ago when, the media started saying, first soy came out as a miracle food, and then it came out as, a poisonous food. And, so I understand why people are confused. Soy is actually really good for you as long as it's non-GMO soy. So I don't mean like the soy that you get in a processed food. I mean in like tempeh or tofu, or like edamame. All of that stuff is really good for you, and it's actually great for your hormones. And so, unless you have been told otherwise, specifically medically, and that's something that I can always talk to you about. But I've been eating tempeh or tofu 3 times a week at least, probably for the past 15 years. And so it's, and all the women in my program, most of them do that. But if you have a soy allergy or sensitivity, or you don't want to eat it for some reason, you can do this lifestyle without it very easily. So, all right. So do you have, also, you guys work with so many women in our program. Do you have women in the program who have had these results, or what have their results been?
Yeah, we see it all the time. I see it all the time. People that are just gaining their life back, they just feel like that they have a second act like we do. They've gotten rid of those addictions, those holds that they have. They're not only losing weight, but they are feeling better and healthy and vibrant, and they feel like they have control over what they're doing. They're excited about it. They love the motivation. They love the inspiration. They love being lifted up, the positivity, because as we've said many times, weight is a symptom, and it's a mindset. and we've got to get to the root of why we made those choices that we did. And when they start clicking with that, oh, they're unstoppable, and it's fun to watch. And so many people are doing so many great things with exercise and switching to water, and they're just happier, and they're setting boundaries with themselves, and they're doing things that just don't drag them down anymore. They're doing things that lift them up. And so it's not just food choices. It translates into all kinds of choices that you make in your daily life, in your job, and with your family.
Absolutely. With the mind work that we do a lot of mindset work in the program, and that is in addition to everything else. And so you just have all of these tools in your toolbox to, like you said, suddenly you're running on all four cylinders. And it's not just about how you look and feel, which is amazing, but it translates into other parts of your life, and that's incredible. What about you, Joanne?
Well, because a lot of the women in our group are in this age bracket, 40s, 50s-ish,
Right.
a lot of them are dealing with these kind of symptoms. And a lot of it is the belly, a lot of that, where it all just starts to come to your belly. And I've had so many people tell me, I never thought I would get rid of this belly. And it's happening. And when you get rid of that,
We had two of those today. We had two, and so on Fridays we have non-scale victory day in the group, and two women already said my belly's flatter. Like that was
I haven't seen that yet today, but I haven't even looked on there. But it happens all the time. It happens all the time when their belly, and a lot of it's bloat, and a lot of it's just the discomfort of everything pushing in there, and to have them say, my whole life I've had this belly, and I never thought in menopause or around menopause I would be able to lose it. And then once, in addition to that, when you get your hormones in check, you get that energy back. And so many people were like, I just kind of thought life was over. I just kind of thought I was, it was going to be all downhill. And now, there's one woman in our group who's 60 and just started being a runner.
I know.
And kicks my butt in the run club. So, like everybody kind of comes in thinking life is over, and really, once you switch this around very quickly, you get a big wake-up call that no, life is not over. It's just about to get really great.
Right. Yeah. And that's the vibe that you have in the group, which is so amazing. Our group is called the Plant Power Army, and it's lifetime access too, which means once you're in the group, you're always in the group. You don't have anything more to pay to be in there. So you always have that support and motivation. And that's where I do, and we do our coaching calls as well. So twice a week we're in there, talking about this stuff. And it's just so motivational and so fun to be part of the group. So, I want to just briefly talk about what the program looks like. So like I said, the first part is really just about when you guys were talking about how you felt better right away, that's about starting that gut healing process. And so that is happening in the first 5 days, that you're really starting to balance your blood sugar, balance your gut flora, and get your gut healing moving in the right direction. And that's why people start to feel better right away. Not to mention the fact that you feel better mentally because you're feeling in control. Yep. Your cravings aren't controlling you. And if you lived like I lived, which was in a state of hunger, all the time, having to have whatever I was craving, then it's so awesome to just feel empowered and feel like food is not the boss of you anymore. That you are in control of that. And that's the first 5 days. And it's a mixture of juices and fresh food. And I will give you recipes for that, or you can even order those from the Plant Powered Chef, which is our meal delivery service, whichever you choose. Emily says, I'm going to make some of Chef John's tofu nuggets. So she ordered from the Plant Powered Chef for lunch, and massage kale salad. So we have things you can order if that's your thing. And then for the next 3 weeks after that, you're eating super clean, no processed foods. And we're just teaching you how to put a meal together. That's the ratios that we're talking about. So that this is the structure that you use to eat. And you have huge lists of foods to choose from. It's basically exhaustive. Almost every food is on the list. And it is just really delicious and filling, and you don't have to count calories. You don't cut carbs. You don't have to figure out your macros. You don't have to spend your whole life in the kitchen. So whether you are somebody like me who just likes to keep my kitchen stocked so that I can make quick meals on the fly, or you're like Joanne who likes to do batch cooking on the weekends, or whether you're like LT who does a mixture of those things, plus she orders in food from meal delivery services, it doesn't matter what your lifestyle is like. We can make this work for you and tailor it to you. And then after those, that's your first month. And then we go to months 2 through 4 of the program, because you have 4 months of one-on-one coaching. So you have it's intensive, help, hand holding those first 4 months. And you'll be learning how to indulge in some processed foods because without going off the rails, right? Because that was our problem before, is that you start going down that road and you can't stop. And then you think, well, maybe I just can't even eat any processed foods anymore, or I can never have anything sweet again, or I can never have anything salty again because I can't control myself. That's not true. We'll show you how to do it. I have an 80-20 rule that's really been effective for that. And it just allows you to stay healthy during vacations and holidays, and also times when life is just tough and you just aren't perfect, and you can still do this. I had a teacher in our group tell me that, this has been a horrific year for her with the pandemic last year. And because of my plan, she had already lost 30 pounds on the plan, and she maintained the whole year. And she was like, I would have gained all this weight back plus more. But I was able to do this because of the way that your program works. And so that's the other thing, is even when times are tough, it doesn't mean you have to gain weight. You can still do this. Yeah. And then throughout the program, we're working on your mindset, so you're feeling strong and in control. And you can just, it's not about therapy. It's really just about removing, I talk about it like removing obstacles. So you are, let's say you're driving on your way to a destination, and you are so excited to get there because you're going on vacation, and you're like, or maybe this is someplace you want to live and you just can't wait, and you hit a roadblock. Well, you don't know what to do, so you turn around and go home. And this is basically how we live our lives with yo-yo dieting. We see the destination and we're excited about it and we want to go there, but as soon as we hit a roadblock, we go back home. So what this does is help you remove those roadblocks so that you can really move forward with your life in all areas. It allows you to know how to get out of the car, get that roadblock out of the way, and keep going towards your destination. So it's a physician-approved method. I've been doing it now for 10 years. And depending on what options you choose for the program, it's between $1,300 and $1,600. And once you're in the program, you're in for life. There's nothing more to pay. So if that's something that you're interested in, just click on my profile and send me a private message. You can also message these two lovely ladies here, and they are happy to talk to you about it as well. So we just love having new women in the group. We're always so excited. Everybody, whenever I introduce someone new in the group, everyone comes to welcome them, and they just immediately get an amazing reception and are so excited to be there. So, we would love to have you. So I thank everyone for joining us today. This is a really important topic. If you have any kind of comments, whether you're watching this live or on the replay, then you can comment, because we will always come back and look at those and answer your questions or comment. And we hope you have an amazing holiday for those of you who are celebrating this weekend. And thank you for joining us for episode 24. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye from Auburn, Alabama. War Eagle.
Bye.